Well, he went home from that experience and, of course, very perturbed and shook up. And in the ensuing years, he did not tell his family about this experience at first. But he began to have visitations at nighttime from another personages who was an angel by the name of Moroni. And Moroni would come to him in the night and would instruct him and tell him that he had a great work to do, but he wasn't quite ready to do that work yet. And so for a period of 4 years, once a year, he supposedly had this visitation from this heavenly being who finally told him that he was going to be taken and led to a place not far from his home, to a hill that was called the Hill Cumorah. And within that hill, he would be led to a certain place where he would be able to dig up an ancient record that was extremely important. And so he went to the hill, and he was instructed to dig, and he dug and found a cement or rock box of some kind. And within that box, he found an ancient record of an ancient people, and the record was formulated of very thin sheets of gold that were bound together with rings. And within it was like a book, and only it was metal, and the ancient hieroglyphics were on it. He dug this up and took it home and hid this record. To make a very long story short, he enlisted the aid. By this time he had told his family what was going on. He enlisted the aid of some friends that he had acquired as it kind of began to get out in the community that something was going on here, and people would come to him and ask him about it. And over a period of about 6 months, he, with the help of his wife, he was now married, and a couple of other close friends who were much more educated than he was, helped him translate this ancient record, which became what is known as the Book of Mormon. The Book of Mormon was printed in around 1829, 1830, and in 1830 was the first official organization of the Mormon Church, which at the time was called the Church of Christ. And later on, they changed the name to Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, which is their official name. The word Mormon comes from the Book of Mormon, and it's a name which other people began calling these people, and eventually became standard. You know, Mormons would use it too. They would call themselves Mormons. Recently, the church has asked, put out a press release asking their press not to use the word Mormon, to please use the full name of the church, because they want to be identified as a Christian religion, which it is. And but the name hangs on, and even still attending Mormons still use it. Now to the Book of Mormon itself. The Book of Mormon is a record of an ancient people who came to America supposedly from Jerusalem. They were Jews who came here, 2 families of Jews who came here, and long story short, eventually wickedness broke them into 2 groups, the good guys, the bad guys. The righteous people stayed white. The unrighteous ones were cursed with a darker skin, and that were the ancestors of the American Indians. So if you haven't heard that story before, it's probably surprising. But it has been preached in the Mormon Church for 190 years that all American South and North Indians are descendants of these people who came from Jerusalem. So they really are Jews in DNA, truly. Well, recently DNA studies have shown that not to be the truth, but the church is fighting that very, very hard, very, very hard. Even to the point that, I've heard educated, scientific Mormons say, well, the story's not all in on DNA. But that's what the Book of Mormon is. It's basically a saga of a people. The story goes from about 600 BC to 400 AD of these people who came to America, and according to the Mormon Church, you know, all the ruins in South America, the pyramids, all that are a direct result of the people who came here and are part of the story of the Book of Mormon. There has never been one archaeological thing found that supports any of the things that are said in the Book of Mormon as far as the buildings, the metallurgy, the animals that are talked about. It talks about animals that have never existed on this continent. But that's the story of the Book of Mormon. And to Mormons, it is scripture. It is canonized scripture. And in that story is a story of a visitation of Jesus Christ to this continent during the time from his crucifixion until he appears back in the Bible. Those days that are missing, he was here on this continent, appearing to and speaking to the people on this continent. One question.
How'd they get here?
Oh, they built boats. They were led out of Jerusalem, and they wandered for several months, and then it was revealed to them by inspiration and revelation how to build these boats, which they then brought across the ocean and landed in South America. Kathleen.
These boats were...
That's the other one.
These boats were big, giant barrels with a hole in the bottom.
There were two migrations. Well, you muddied the waters. There were actually two migrations over here, and the people I've just told you about found the records of another group that came earlier, and they're the ones that came in the barrels. Anyway, you'd have to read it. And I believed it for 50 years. My poor thing. Okay, I'm going to have to rush here. The other thing that's critical to the Mormon Church and in history, which sets it apart in their mind, is that the doctrine of the Mormon Church teaches that after Jesus Christ was crucified and then after his apostles were all killed or died, that there was a great apostasy upon the earth, and that the church as Jesus set it up disappeared from the earth, and along with it the authority that Jesus Christ had to perform ordinances, to bless people and do those things which in the eyes of the LDS people was a literal priesthood authority that Jesus held. And in the story that Joseph Smith tells about what happened to him, also appeared to him John the Baptist as a resurrected being who came here and bestowed on Joseph Smith a portion of that priesthood, which gave him authority that had not been on the earth for 1,800 years. No, 1,800. Yeah. Then appeared Peter, James, and John, who came as resurrected beings and bestowed upon Joseph Smith and two of his closest friends the other part of the priesthood, which they call the higher priesthood, which then gave them full authority to exercise any ordinances and to preach in the name of God, and they are the only ones on the earth who hold this authority. In the Mormon doctrine, they are the only ones who have authority directly from God, and they are the one and only true religion. And that's what sets Mormonism apart from so many other religions. The church grew very rapidly. They sent missionaries out. Thousands and thousands of converts came from Europe. I know that many of those converts came for reasons other than religion. They joined the church because many of them got passage paid for them by other members of the church to come to America, but the church grew very rapidly. And during this period, the group of people who became Mormons were traveling kind of to different places in eastern United States and often would be driven out of where they were. The church's story is that it was religious persecution. It was often because the Mormons, you know, made terrible nuisances of themselves wherever they went. They believed they had a mandate from God to take over wherever they were, and because they became large rapidly and had a lot of converts, their voting bloc was powerful, and people were afraid of them. And there were other things like banking scandals and financial scandals. I mean, there are many, many things that happened that the average member of the Mormon Church has no idea about what really